a bigger part for me was an encounter I had with a black graduate student, and I've always hoped I could reconnect with this guy. But I knew him as Major Jones, okay? This guy was the first black intellectual I ever met, and I met him when I was a freshman. You know, our routine every day was between classes, like most people had a break after their 11 o'clock class. So we would meet in the grill area in the student center, and we would all congregate around two tables.
These are the black students.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you know, in terms of how we kind of maintained some sense of stability and mental health, you know, that meeting was really important. We were just, you know, socializing, checking on each other, talking about whatever. But it made our day go better that we could reconnect at noon. So Major Jones was part of that group. He was an older guy because mainly these were all undergraduates. And, you know, our conversation was about the party coming up or something that might have happened in class, but it was lightweight conversation for the most part. But this guy would always introduce some heavy topic. Okay, he would always move the conversation toward what was going on with the movement, what was happening at in other places on other campuses, what we were reading, you know. So he had a way of always provoking some serious discussion. And I would always observe him, and I think he observed me observing him. But the thing that impressed me was he was well-read. Okay, so when he would engage in these conversations, it wasn't opinion. It was based on something that he understood through reading and through research. So he brought a level of like logic and understanding that was way over our heads. But over time, he began to slide me books. And I never read a book about a black person or by a black person. But he would send me books. It'd be like, I'd be sitting here and he'd sit here and he'd say, "Young blood, you need to read this," you know. So he would give me a book by James Baldwin, okay? And I would take it home, and my routine became, I would, after dinner, I would study, and I would study for 3 or 4 hours. So I would get my required work out of the way, and as a treat, I would then delve into the books that he was giving me. And I would read and read and read. And sometimes, I never forget it, sometimes I would be so mesmerized by this reading that I would read through the night. And next thing I know, I'm hearing birds. It's time to go to class. It's time to get ready. But I can remember never feeling fatigued or tired. You know, I was just energized by this new information, and this became kind of a regular pattern, part of my regular routine. And the more I read, I mean, what I tell young people about there's power in knowledge. There really is, because the more I read, the better a student I became. You know, and I think it maybe was just a question of confidence, but I just felt bigger and more powerful.
Do you remember it was Baldwin, and do you
It was
remember any
Baldwin.
other?
I read the autobiography of Malcolm X when it came out. I read Richard Wright. I read Chester Himes, you know.
Pink Toes.
Yeah. I mean, you know, all of the Harlem Renaissance writers, I was reading that, read everything that James Baldwin ever wrote.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of marked me in terms of like my interests. You know, I was in sociology, and at that time, I was doing something around crime and penology. I think that was maybe the specialty, because I intended to be a parole officer or something. But slowly my interest was moving toward race, you know, understanding race. And, you know, like you said, there was so much going on in the country that it was just a really charged kind of time to begin to understand more about the history and the culture and the politics of race. So, you know, when I think about moments in my life that moved me to another direction, it really was that relationship with that guy.
And was he from Kentucky? Do you remember? Or
I don't remember. I just remember he was a veteran. You know, he would always wear Army fatigues, smoked a pipe, had a big mustache, and wore black horn-rimmed glasses.
and Major Jones, but
Major
you
Jones.
couldn't. You lost him.
I've tried to find him. Mm-mm.